we still can. That's right. And you see what's happening in Washington? Well, we've got the pleasure tonight of hearing from one of the authors and architects of what's going on in Washington right now, Representative Gary Peters. So we've got a nice agenda. In addition to Gary, we've got Melissa Bernardi from the Oakland County Organizing for America. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about how we can organize ourselves for the upcoming campaign season. And then Cassandra Ulbrich and Ted Golden are going to speak. There are two candidates that are going to be running, or are running for the Democratic seat, or what we hope will be a Democratic seat, for the 12th district in the Michigan Senate. So my name's Phil Borchardt. I'm actually the outgoing chairman of Rochester Area for Change, and our incoming chairman is Mr. David Hartman. Where did he go? There he is. He's in the back. Hi, David. Welcome to the chairmanship. And David put a nice committee together to organize this event. So up front, I want to thank David and Dodie June, Angela Youngblood, Joanne Rapphorst, and Ava Judy Amir for putting this event together. Thank you. And there is a door prize at the end of this event.
Must be present.
So you must be present to win, which means you have to stay to hear the candidates speak, because they're going last, all right? So without further ado, let me just introduce Gary Peters. He doesn't really need a lot of introduction, because I'm sure you all voted for him. Yeah? Exactly. But he is our United States representative serving Michigan, 9th Congressional District here in Oakland County. He's a 5th generation Oakland County resident, and he's dedicated his life to serving this community in Michigan and the United States of America. As a new member of Congress, he's on the Finance Services Committee, and that's a great role for him because he's got 20 years of experience in the financial sector. He's been fighting foreclosures and fighting for our auto industry, as in getting the Lake Orion plant to stay open, for example. So it's an excellent accomplishment. He's also on the Science and Technology Committee, fighting for new jobs in the technology sector for us here in our area. You probably know he was in the Michigan State Senate, where he introduced 3 bills to cut taxes on the first day in office. He's a Navy veteran, served with distinction in the Gulf War, and he's a big believer in education, as evidenced by his own experience going to school. He is a graduate of Rochester High School. Yay! Alma College. He's got his MBA from U of D Mercy, law degree from Wayne State, and he's just finishing his PhD, or he finished it in philosophy of ethics for development at Michigan State. So he made the round of all the colleges. The Lord knows who needs that ethics development in Washington. That's a good degree to have. So he lives right in the area here with his wife Colleen and 3 children. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Rochester's own Gary Peters.
Thank you, Phil. It's a welcome, or it's great to be here with all of you, and look forward to having an opportunity to have a little discussion on what's happening in Washington. There's just a few things going on there, so we can just take a few minutes talking about that. But really, what I'd like to do is open it up for questions, because I know nobody here is bashful, and I'm sure you have lots of questions about what has been happening, or what is happening, what's going to happen, and issues. But before I get into that and a little bit of an update, I just want to thank all of you for your activism.
Thank you.
Because you're out there working to bring about the change, and worked for President Obama, and it was a force to be reckoned with here in Rochester, which traditionally doesn't have a lot of Democrats, but it was a strong turnout in the last election, and that would not have happened without all of you on the ground, your commitment, knocking doors, making calls, putting stamps, all the things that you do. So thank you for your activism. It does make a difference.
Thank you for being
Of course, that it seems like we were just in an election, and guess what, we're in another one now this year, so we're going to have to go back at it again, and want to talk a little bit about that and answer any of your questions about that. I want to just touch on a couple things in Washington that I've been working on, and issues I think are very important to us here. Certainly there isn't anything more important than jobs. And getting the Michigan economy going is number one, and a focus on the entire country and getting those jobs moving forward. I've been working, as Phil mentioned, on the auto industry in particular, making sure that we continue to have an auto industry in this state. And we know we've got to diversify. We've got to have a lot of other different industries and work in building our strengths that we have in science and technology and other areas. But you can't diversify your economy if you lose your core industry. You've got to have that one first. And so we have gone through some incredibly tough times with the bankruptcies of General Motors and Chrysler. And as a guy who grew up here, I mean, this is something, and I'm sure you all share this, it isn't anything we would even fathom that you'd ever see, that General Motors would be in a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Both General Motors and Chrysler. I mean, that just went to the very core of who we are, and as Michiganders and the pride that we have in an important industry for our state. On the good news, I think we're through a lot of the bad, and we're looking at things stabilizing. In fact, you probably saw the sales were up. Ford Motor Company sales were up strong. General Motors sales were up. Chrysler was up a little bit, not a lot, but they're still coming out with some new products, but at least it's stabilized. It isn't continuing to drop. We just need to continue to move forward. And part of that to move forward is making sure that we're producing those next generation cars here in Michigan. I mean, we're in a race for our lives with the Chinese and the Japanese and the Europeans and others that are producing those cars. And the governments that are working with those industries, because they understand that they are strategic industries, important just to maintain a manufacturing base. And certainly that's the case here. I've worked on a bill called the Advanced Vehicle Technology Act, which actually passed in the House as well. We passed it in September, which authorizes about $3 billion over the next 5 years for advanced research in hybrids and the new alternative technologies, primarily focused on auto suppliers, which are folks here in this district. It got wide bipartisan support, which is nice to see something happening in a bipartisan fashion in Congress, that it can happen. I mean, I had the U.S. Chamber of Commerce endorsing it, the National Association of Manufacturers, the labor unions, and all of the environmental groups. So that doesn't happen very often. Well, that's what you need to get things done. And it's a good bill as far as strategic. It just so happens that most of the money is actually going to end up here in Southeast Michigan. Which is particularly with our engineers. When one thing that I always have to deal with misconceptions about Michigan when I'm dealing in Washington, and a lot of folks in Washington see Michigan as this factory and smokestack state, and we have those, and we like them, we're proud of them, but we're a lot more than that too. We're actually have an incredible intellectual base, especially with our engineering base. And what I remind my colleagues, or let them know in Washington regularly, is that we have more engineers in Southeast Michigan than any other region of the country. I mean, most people are amazed to hear that. It's an incredible competitive advantage we have. Of course, our challenge now is to keep them here. So once they move away, it's tough to get them back. So we got to make sure those jobs are still here. And those lead to manufacturing jobs and really the whole economy, which is why this is so important to get this passed. It's now over in the Senate, and Senator Debbie Stabenow has taken the lead over there in the Senate, and hopefully we'll get that passed very soon. The other thing that I've been very involved in, as mentioned, I'm on Financial Services Committee, so that has that's Barney Frank is the chair, and that deals with all of the financial industry, from the banks to Wall Street to the insurance, and that's been a pretty busy committee too this last year. In fact, with all of the talk about healthcare and all of the media attention that we've had on healthcare, that we've been going along on this, and this bill is equally as complex, if not more complex, than healthcare. It certainly has a tremendous impact on the lives of everyday folks. And we passed that bill in the end of December. It's now over in the Senate. Hopefully they'll be able to move that through, although I'm very frustrated with the Senate and their inability to move a lot of what I think are very good pieces of legislation that we put forward. But I think the bill struck a real good balance in understanding that under the previous administration, there really wasn't the regulation that you needed for the financial industry, and the pendulum had swung way too far. Basically, greed was allowed to run wild, and we know that we're all paying the price as a result of that. And it was important for us to bring that pendulum back, make sure there's the oversight necessary so that we never have this kind of financial meltdown again. And we were able to do that. I think we got a right balance. You don't want the pendulum to go too far and start interfering with the ability of the markets to do what they do, but you've got to put in the framework to protect taxpayers and investors, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on that as well. The other issue that I'm sure is on everybody's mind is healthcare. That continues to move forward, hopefully. We passed two versions, as you know, and I voted. I'm happy to say that I voted for the House version of the healthcare bill because I look at it, this issue, and we've got to make sure